Hey everyone, Sumo Spiffy here. The Banzuke is out for Aki 2023 and oh boy, some decisions were made. So let's break it down and figure out what these old goats were thinking. Before we get into the Banzuke itself, a real quick note on the Guess the Banzuke video, the Guess the Banzuke entry that we talked about in the last video. After some commenters pointed out that I was treating Matakiyumi, who was ranked just ahead of Midori Fuji, quite a bit differently, I realized that, yeah, that is what I was doing, and there probably wasn't a good enough reason for it. Originally, I had Matakiyumi down here at M11 West. The only reason I did that was because I took a glance at it. I saw that to move him up any further would mean Hokuseiho gets over-demoted, and I was like, I don't think they're going to do that. So I changed it because I realized from those commenters that that's probably not a good enough reason. They've bumped guys down that extra half rank, over-demoted them for not necessarily the best reasons in the last few Banzukes. So, you know, maybe they do that here again. Not a big deal. So I bumped Matakiyumi up to Megashira 8 West. The reason I did that and not like 8 East or 9 East or whatever, there's a couple reasons. One, I took a guess that they were just going to keep bumping Oho further down. The other reason was Midori Fuji, Hiraumi, Ryuden, and Kotoeko were all tied mathematically, but Kotoeko was the only one that had 0 Sanyaku fights. Ryuden had 1, Midori Fuji had 6, and Hiraumi had 3. Midori Fuji and Hiraumi were in the Joy, so I figured they should go to the top. Ryuden, I took a guess, like the preferences for guys with Sanyaku opponents we've seen in the last few Banzukes, those guys have all had 2 or more opponents. So Matakiyumi could have ended up ahead of Ryuden, behind him, didn't really matter. You know, this was my guess. I put Ryuden ahead of him and called it a day. Which makes what ended up happening all the stranger and, in a way, more ironic. So here we have that guess that I just showed you with the actual Banzuke. I changed the color scheme a little bit from some feedback. Green was apparently a little bit confusing for things that were wrong, so yellow is 1 point for guess the Banzuke purposes. Basically, it means that my guess was on the right rank, but it was on the other side. So like Asanayama and Abi, I had them flip-flopped, as you can see over here. So I get 1 point for those. Orange means I was 1 rank off. So Takanosho and Ganoyama, I had them flip-flopped, but up and down. I had Ganoyama at 4. So they're 1 off. And then red is more than 1 numerical rank off. So like Oho I had at 9 East, so he was up at 7 West. So, you know, the East-West thing I'm not worried about. I was off by 2 numerical ranks, 7 versus 9, so he goes in red. That should give you an idea what we're going to talk about the most, so let's get going. So the top is exactly what we expected it to be. I say this a lot, but I remember when I was new and I needed explanations from people who I realized kind of took a lot of this stuff for granted. So again, Hoshoryu is on the west, leaving this gap here because Terunofuji is on the east and there's nobody to balance him out here. So in the Sanyaku, they want to balance things out east and west whenever possible. So we've got 2 guys on the east, then 1 on the west, so now we move the new Ozeki over to the west. Now it's 2 and 2. Daisho, Wakamoto Haru, Kotonowaka, he got his 11 wins. Why did I make that into an H? He got his 11 wins, so he gets the happy face. He gets bumped up to Sekiwake. The east-west is fine, so he just goes on the east. Nishikigi and Tobizaru were the only real options to go to Komusubi, so the Sanyaku was done. Hokuto Fuji was well ahead of everybody else. Meisei had a winning record in an area of the Banzuke where not that many people did. So those guys go to M1. So the first question, and this isn't really a question, this is just one that I got wrong. A lot of people got it wrong the same way I did, thinking Asanayama was going to be ahead. And a lot of people got it right. Really, this comes down to, did they want to over-promote Asanayama further? So here, he is up 1.5 ranks with 8 wins, so he still went up an extra half a rank. And so do they give him a smaller promotion and demote Abi less from Komusubi West just to Megashira 2 East with 6 wins? So now he only goes down 1.5 ranks with a 6-9 record. Or do they give that preference to Asanayama because he did have a decently tough schedule? it would have made sense either way. They decided to give this preference to Abi. There's nothing wrong here. It's just a guess. For the Banzuke players, it was fortunate that these guys were pretty clearly going to end up at Megashira 2 regardless, so we get to score points either way. Takano Sho and Ganoyama. Now, they have pretty reliably, in tied situations, which these guys were tied, they have been preferring the guys with more wins. This could be the limit of that. If Ganoyama had gone up to Megashira 4, which is, as you can see, what I had guessed, that would have been nine ranks on 10 and 5, which normally gets you 5 ranks. To jump from Megashira 13 to Megashira 4, even though it does break what they've been doing the last few Banzukes, it's not at all unreasonable to say, look, this guy was fighting way down the line. Yeah, he did good, but from 13 all the way to 4, he has to do something really special. He has to get some more wins to do that. If there's somebody else we can put in that place, we're going to. Takano Sho, to give him 4 ranks on 8 and 7 is also a lot. They were going to have to give somebody a really, really surprising jump because both of them were going to be over promoted by quite a bit regardless. They gave this one to Takano Sho. I got this one wrong. I know a lot of people got this one wrong. I'm not sure how many people got it right. I didn't see too many people talking about this choice. I mean, we'll find out. The Banzukes, the Banzukes that are guests are available once the competition is over. So maybe we can check that out at a later time. Ura holds his ground. Shonen no Umi, he's the only guy to go to 5 West. We were right about Onisho only going down the half rank because there really wasn't a better option. And now we get to the interesting stuff. Oh, and Takayasu, there was nobody really to push him out of his 7E spot. And this is where things get a little wild. I have said many times in the last, 4 to 6 months, hey, they keep preferring guys with better records, except there's always an except, and it's when they have Sanyaku opponents, especially if they were in the Joy and they had a lot of Sanyaku opponents. It seemed to happen when they had at least 2 Sanyaku opponents, but the truth is it's hard for a guy to only have 1 opponent in the Sanyaku in a tournament. So Ryuden, he only had 1, but there's not a lot of precedent for that. There's not a lot to go on. So I wasn't entirely sure what they were going to do with him. What I did figure was that because, as I mentioned before, he was tied with Midori Fuji, Kotoeko, and Hiraumi, they were going to give preference to the guys with the toughest schedule because that's what they've been doing for the past 6 months or so. So with that being the case, I said it in the other video and I'll say it here, Midori had 6 Sanyaku opponents, Hiraumi had 3, Ryuden had 1, and Kotoeko had 0. That was the logic. Initially, in the instant Banzuke that I did the day after the tournament was over, I put Ryuden ahead because of the numbers. But then when I went back and thought about it, it was like, that doesn't make a lot of sense depending on based on what they've been doing recently. And then they just threw it all out the window. Not only did they put Ryuden ahead of Midori Fuji and Hiraumi, up all the way up here, which would have made some sense if they drew a line between Sanyaku opponents and no Sanyaku opponents. Never mind that 1 versus 6 seems to be a pretty big difference. They could just say, hey, he fought someone in the Sanyaku, he gets treated the same way. That's possible, but they put Kotoeko above Hiraumi and Midori Fuji. They completely ignored the Sanyaku opponents these guys had. That goes 100% against what they've been doing the last few Banzukes, what they've been doing since the start of the year when the new head of the committee took over and whatever other changes that we don't know about happened to the committee. They definitely started doing things differently though. And that Joy preference was apparent and they just got rid of it. This time it didn't happen. They went purely by record. Ryuden had 10 wins, Kotoeko had 8 wins, Hiraumi had 5 wins, and Midori Fuji had 4 wins. So they went in the exact opposite order. I don't know if I'm more mad. I'm not going to be mad about it. Let's get that out of the way. I'm just confused. I don't know why they decided to just flip it like this time. I'm gonna guess that they had a reason because it's so different. It's so outside what they've been doing. I'm gonna guess they're gonna stick with this if there's a similar situation in the next Banzuke, because it would be even stranger if they flipped it this time and then just went back like nothing happened. But this one is, I don't understand it at all. This is one of those things that doesn't make sense. Yes, they went in preference of number of wins. Logic, like it's right there. We can see it. The only confusing thing is that they hadn't done that all year. They just haven't been doing that when guys in the Joy are involved. So I don't understand this one. Oho, I really thought they were going to get sick of Oho's trash. Like, he gets up here and then he just gets his ass beat. So were they really going to just give him the one win? Well, or the one rank loss? Yeah, that's all they gave him. I kind of got in my own head about this. The main reason for this was because Kotoeko had the 0 Sanyaku opponents, and everybody else had at least one. So I figured Oho was going to go behind the 3 who had Sanyaku opponents if he was going to go behind any of them. And he had to go behind at least one because he had to get out of Megashira 6 West. But yeah, they stuck him behind Ryuden and in front of everybody else. Again, it makes enough sense. He was ahead of all of them mathematically. Megashira 7 was really the minimum demotion that he could get. So even though I was wrong about that one, I do understand it. That one is not completely illogical. So dropping him to Megashira 7 West does make sense. It's just, I got him wrong in the mix with all those guys who were tied that I got completely backwards. It is what it is, so be it. Hakuoho, I had him at 9 West for a while in my drafts, and then I bumped him down to 10 East, and he ended up back at 9 West. Now you'll notice Matakiyumi did not get bumped up to 8 West. He ended up eating a larger demotion like I originally thought. That doesn't make me upset that I made the change, because given everything that we had seen, the same reason that I thought it was going to go Midori, then Hiraumi, then Ryuden, then Kotoeko, that was the same reason why I bumped Matakiyumi back up. The logic was sound. They just didn't run with the same logic. So I bumped Matakiyumi up. That pushed Hakuoho back to 10 East, but him at 9 West is completely sensible. That one fits perfectly well. What doesn't fit is this one. This one, what is Kimbozan doing here? Kimbozan was 7 and 8 at Megashira 10 East. Now, 7 and 8 guys sometimes don't get demoted. That happens. That's totally normal. But not in a case like this. There was a pileup. There was a traffic jam here. There was no end to the number of guys who could have taken that spot and bumped him back. Why didn't... Look, Matakiyumi, they dropped him all the way to Megashira 11 East, and we'll get talking about him and Hokuseiho in a second. But why not just switch these two guys around? If you were going to under-demote Matakiyumi at all, why not throw him at 10 East and give Kimbozan his demotion, his one rank of demotion to 11 West? Honestly, this looks like a clerical error. That's how little sense this one makes. How did Kimbozan manage to keep that spot? There had to be some kind of negotiations going on here, some kind of, I'm not going to say anything untoward happened. I'm not going to say, somebody owed somebody a big favor, because keeping a guy at 10 East instead of 11 East is not exactly a favor kind of thing. This one just, it blows my mind. There's no sense to this one. If you're sitting here like, why did they keep him in the same rank? I don't know. There's no explanation. Talk to them. And if you can get to talk to them, let me know, because I'd love to talk to them too. Endo landed around where we had it exactly right at 10 West. Other people had him around this spot, but this general area makes enough sense. Matakiyumi and Hokuseiho. Let me see if I understand this correctly. Matakiyumi was Megashira 2 West, so he was well into the Joy. The last few Banzukes, they have under-demoted guys in that position, right? If they had really bad records. So I thought they were going to do that, and they didn't. But that's okay. They don't have to. His numerical drop would be 9 ranks to Megashira 11 West. So instead of just put him down there, since they're dropping him past everybody else, they just put him at 11 East. They just shift him over a half rank just to make Hokuseiho get over-demoted by a half rank. The only thing they did here with Matakiyumi was use him to bump Hokuseiho back an extra half a rank. Now, Matakiyumi getting this big drop, given everything else, does make sense, but did they do this just to make a point to Hokuseiho? Were they just like, your sumo is trash and you need to try harder? It wouldn't be the first time I've seen a Banzuke decision that looks like it has that message in mind. They never say it outright, you can never be sure that's the point, but oh boy, does that look like the message they're trying to get across here. Screw you, Hokuseiho, put some freaking effort in, otherwise we're just gonna keep the broken old man in front of you, and Matakiyumi's not even that old, that's rude, but we're gonna keep the broken Ozeki in front of you. Figure out what you're doing, come on, man. From Megashira 12 on down, it pretty much lines up correctly to Karafuji. He got what he should get. Sanumi, they each got like a half a rank bonus, whatever. Myogiryu, Nishiki Fuji, they were tied, so they gave it to the guy with more wins. There was no Sanyaku opponents in play. There was no Joy stuff in play. So they just gave it to the guy with the better record. Okay, that's cool. Aoyama, he's sticking around. Big Dan, he stays in Makauchi. He's Megashira 14. Kota Shoho may have seen his best rank come and go. Do you think he's ever going to get to Megashira 5 again? I have my doubts. The only real question here is Atami Fuji and Chiyoshoma. We had Atami Fuji and Kageyaki next to each other, not because it's like, well, they should be next to each other, but just because these were the two gaps in the Banzuke. Chiyoshoma at his proper demotion was at 15 East, Tsurugisho 16 West, Daishoho 17 East, all with their exact mathematical demotions. There was no reason to put Atami Fuji and Kageyaki anywhere else. Apparently they decided, though, if you have 11 wins and a Yusho from a half rank behind a guy with 9 wins, there just needs to be a gap between you. For some reason, I don't know. If you, and I'm talking to you, played Guess the Banzuke and had Atami Fuji at 15 East and Chiyoshoma at 15 West, let me know in the comments, because props to you. I don't know if anybody made this call. It just doesn't make sense. Why would you over-demote Chiyoshoma? And really, Chiyoshoma is the key here. Why are you over-demoting this guy so that the Juryo dude can get a little further up? It's not even his first time in the division, and he didn't do well. He sucked ass the first time. So, like, why are we doing him this favor? I don't know. It's one of those things that's not really a huge deal. Chiyoshoma's just going to hang out at this part of the Banzuke now for the rest of his career until he fades further and ends up falling out of the division or just retires. Atami Fuji, we'll see how he does. He seems to have improved from his first run at Makuuchi, but it's one of those decisions that even though it doesn't matter if we're trying to figure out why they do what they do, it's just, I think they do this so that people can't predict the Banzuke, so that they give up. They don't want us playing this game. Damn the man, damn the system. They don't want us playing this game. We have to guess the Banzuke regularly and let them know we're not going anywhere. So that's the Banzuke for Aki 2023. Anything else you'd like to know about? Leave a comment. I'll get back to you. We've got more videos coming. We'll talk about some fantasy stuff. If there's any fantasy games you want me to bring up on the channel, I don't mind looking things over. If I see one that's fun, I'll make a video about it. That would be cool. Other than that, I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day.